joined us on Starting Up. Now, he's a Norwegian film director and producer, but also an investor in Europe's most creative business. Thomas Hoegh was in India recently, and Sudhir Syal caught up with him. It's over to Sudhir then in our studios.
Filmmaker, entrepreneur and investor, Thomas Hoegh wears multiple hats. He's most well known as the co-founder of Love Film, UK's Netflix, which sold to Amazon for over £170 million. Apart from this, he's also the founder of venture capital firm Arts Alliance, which has 13 startups in its portfolio with over 18 exits to its credit. He was in India for the Founders Forum, and we started the interview by asking him to take us through the Love Film journey.
Well, Love Film was indeed a sort of a passion project. I had been an investor in Netflix and a big admirer of what they had done. And I thought, well, Europe needs to do something like it, but not necessarily just like it. So sort of the tick-the-box conversation that I know is prevalent around here. We have the same syndrome in Europe, where a lot of people say, okay, let's just do what the Americans have done and we will be fine. I never subscribed to that approach. For me, the opportunity was to harness the passion for film and to be rather centric around film as opposed to the internet aspect of it.
Okay.
And it was an interesting situation because there was a couple of other people who started competing outfits, and they didn't have the same passion among their own customers. So their acquisition costs were much higher. It was harder for them to compete with us. We eventually merged with them, and then we merged with Amazon, where they took a stake in the company and they moved all of their customers into Love Film.
So Thomas, there were 2 points of inflection in that whole journey, right? The first point you alluded to was when Amazon realized that, hey, they couldn't scale their business, their DVD rental business, and hey, we might as well give it to these folks who are executing it well, Love Film, right? Mm-hmm. And then finally, when you guys were acquired eventually by Amazon itself, right? Mm-hmm. So it's sort of life sort of came a full circle. So how did that conversation take place? Because it was hardly 2 years after the initial acquisition by you.
Well, I think they liked what they saw. Okay. And they said, well, this is really working. It's profitable, it's growing. We want the whole thing. Right. Also, there were a few other suitors, and they were not particularly keen on someone else taking it over.
Sure.
And I also thought that when they saw that the traction in the digital side was really started to happen, the streaming business, I think that's when they realized that this is something they were better suited at scaling than just a DVD rental business.
Okay.
So I think to some extent they were sort of waiting for that trigger point to be comfortable with that this was a long-term play.
Right. Thomas, how do you view that industry now? You've been within the DVD rental industry and now the streaming industry for a while. That industry has seen a big shift, right? So it's shifted out of DVD rental to streaming, and there's been an Indian company which hasn't been able to scale in the DVD rental space, 70mm, right? Yes. And they've all had inherent challenges in scaling a DVD rental business. How do you view this transition taking place from DVD rental to online streaming? And is the DVD rental business on its own dead?
Oh, it's a very good question. First of all, the DVD rental business is not dead. And it's a great business because it's really hard to do. If you can do it right, it's a great business. Right. And also has a much wider catalog than the streaming business. Right. The streaming business has some inherent challenges. First of all, it has to do with rights. Sure. There are limited rights available. A lot of rights have not been defined because the films predates the definition of digital rights. And then going back and negotiating sync rights with the widow of the composer of film X is really tiring and costly. So for the depth of catalog, DVD and Blu-ray is still a viable format.
The biggest challenge you would say in the DVD rental space is actually logistics and getting the DVD back from the consumer and taking it back to him?
Yeah, and also the operations at the sort of the center. Yeah. So to get the efficiencies of moving things around and having as small as inventory as possible, at still giving the customer a great service. Great.
Thomas, the final sale to Amazon happened at about £180 million. Did you feel that was the right price? What were your thoughts while that exit was happening? Why do you think it was the right time to exit at that point?
Well, precisely because I think it was a game for the really big boys.
Okay.
The company needed to up its ambitions, or not at all. So we were planning, either we were going to go public and raise lots of money, or we needed to, in essence, partner with one of the big businesses.
Sure.
It was no opportunity to be we were turning over north of £100 million.
Right.
We were profitable.
Right.
But
why not go public then?
Well, first of all, the market wasn't great. Second of all, we had a great suitor who wanted the company, and at a reasonable price. I think it was about the right price, primarily because it felt good at the time when we did it, but at the same time, a few weeks later, I must say I was sort of in remorse. Because I felt that, wow, they're sort of taking my little, my brainchild away.
Thomas, what are you seeing in Europe right now? What are some of the sectors that have been gaining traction? You mentioned doom and gloom, and there's this situation playing out with Greece and with the EU. What sort of sectors are you seeing that are still exciting and interesting in Europe?
Well, I think there are two things that excites me in Europe. They're the kinds of plays where you're looking at technology to, in essence, transform traditional businesses. So where you've got a combination of physical business and digital business that also makes them, to some extent, immune from attack from overseas. But there's a big trend in that, and the sort of retail combos, which I think is quite interesting. And then I see a lot of smart things around social marketing, figuring out how to harness things like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and other networks of in essence starting with the consumer rather than with the products, and figuring out how to match the consumer demand and looking at group buying and other things in more interesting ways than the obvious sort of Groupon type of knockoffs, which I don't think are particularly interesting.
Coming to India, you've been here now for a while. Yeah. You've been at Founders Forum. You've met a number of entrepreneurs and interesting startups. How would you view the Indian landscape, and what are some of the companies that have caught your fancy?
Well, first of all, it's humbling to meet so many talented people. Founders Forum is very good at bringing together some great entrepreneurs. So a few companies that I met that I thought was particularly exciting. I thought Quicker was one that caught my eye. I think the Infinibeam is an interesting company. I think their way of thinking about the infrastructure that's required for e-commerce looks very, very sensible. But the one I thought was most sort of interesting and unique and very different from what I would have seen in Europe was the Chotu.in company. I thought that was really quite the story that the guys told about how they started off selling fruit on the roadside and then kind of ended up having this network was really quite amazing.
It's been a pleasure having you on the show, Thomas. Thank you very much.
Thank you.